Good news, we're breathing. Good news, we're alive. Good news are here, and no one can deny. I say good news, we're breathing. Good news, we're alive. Good news are here, and nobody can deny. You can break my heart, you can break my bones, but no one can break my spirit, 'cause my spirit is my home. You can take my money, you can take my time, but no one can take my spirit, 'cause my spirit is mine. I say good news, we're breathing. Good news, we're alive. Good news are here, and no one can deny. Oh, good news.
Welcome to How We Live, a series for and about women finding beauty, purpose, and meaning as they enter midlife. For those of us entering middle age, we grew up with the promise that we could have it all. Thanks to the fearless women who came before us, the activists, the visionaries, and the change makers, women have been able to make choices, carve paths, and access possibilities that once seemed impossible. In our 20s, we were full of hope and ambition, trying on new identities, building the foundations of our careers, starting relationships, and maybe even becoming mothers, all with a ton of energy, if not all the answers. In our 30s, we got clearer, shook things up a bit, and made bold decisions about who we were and what we wanted. We juggled careers, relationships, and young families like pros. And now in our 40s and 50s, at the height of our careers, with kids nearly grown, parents aging, and relationships evolving, we're navigating it all with rock-solid confidence, grace, and ease. Like Wonder Woman Barbie, we arrive in midlife feeling self-assured and ready to reap the benefits of our hard-won experience and wisdom.
Okay.
Well, maybe for some. I'm Dr. Natasha Ghosh, an educator, therapist, daughter, wife, mother, and a woman about to turn 50 who is also struggling to understand how this particular fairy tale might not reflect the reality of midlife. In my practice as a therapist, the stories I hear from women are more complicated. Instead of enjoying hard-earned confidence in midlife, they're feeling uncertain. Their bodies and appearances are changing, their children are becoming independent, and their relevance in workplaces may be shifting with the times. Many feel the pressure of a culture obsessed with youth, where newly minted commodities like attention, likes, and followers have become the new currency. Instead of being recognized for superpowers like life experience, credibility, and wisdom, some women arriving at midlife suspect that their new superpower might just be invisibility. So how do we redefine confidence after 40? What does it mean to feel truly seen and heard in a world that may overlook and even attempt to silence older women? How do we cut through the noise to hear and reclaim our authentic voices and redefine what real confidence feels like in the messy middle? How were you praised as a child, and how do you feel that impacts who you are today?
Oh, my parents did a lot of things right, and one of them was giving me a lot of praise.
The first thing that comes to mind was about intelligence.
Definitely for my actions, not my looks, 100%. Like I said, we were a very musical family, and so I played piano and flute and tenor saxophone, and praised for medals and stuff at music things, and praised for grades.
I remember I was the one in grade 3 that would always solve the math problem the quickest. And so given that I never felt appreciated for my appearance, I was like, well, I'm not getting any validation there, so I'm gonna double down on this smart thing.
Because I was a shy child, very introverted. Also, I was born with a very severe deformity. I was born club-footed. So my parents, from a very young age, started to do things with me that put me on stage. And when I look back, it's incredible what they did.
I'm actually that little girl who was growing up in that small village who's been told that you're going to be a housewife. Your job is to cook and clean. When you're gonna get married, this is been actually told us, this is how I raised.
So, raised in a dysfunctional family, needed to get away. Only way to do it, and I guess acceptably, was to get away to university. So I went to university.
Fast forward, I was the precocious honor student who was good at everything she tried to do, and fumbled a lot and struggled with connecting as well with others. Spoiler alert, have now been diagnosed as autistic, which makes a lot of sense when you look back at my history, but at the time certainly didn't know. And so moved out and away from my hometown to a larger city when I was 17 so that I could go to a real high school for my grade 12 year, as you do when you're an early honor student.
Also, one of the things that shaped me most was I have a sister who's 14 months younger than me, and it was my responsibility to take care of her most of the time. And so that made me more mature faster. I think, being able to take care of this person.
I think my mom always really validated me and praised me for kindness. She was always like, that's a really nice thing you did, and that was very formative as well.
And definitely praised for just being a kind, good person. That was really important in our family. My mother never really talked about herself one way or the other. She never said she didn't look good or she didn't like her body, ever. We talked about being able to hike and canoe and ski and play piano and those sorts of things. She never, ever talked about herself that way. She also never wore any makeup. I had nothing to play with as a child. We didn't have any hair products. Hairspray was a brand new thing, when I became a teenager.
There was always this genuine love and a lot of praise and a lot of affirmation. And it played a big role, I think, in me turning out to be a positive person and hopefully paying it forward too.
That never changes. As I mentioned earlier, I love cooking. I still do. Doesn't matter how much I go out or do things outside of my box. I'm training other people. I volunteer a lot with community. I compete, but at home, I'm still a housewife. I will be cleaning, cooking, doing all those chores. So that stays with me. I think it has never changed. It has never changed.
That was really freeing to not feel like I ever had to look a certain way or make myself up before I left the house. That just wasn't a thing in our house. I'm trying to instill that in my daughter, that it's nice to feel good and have clothes that fit and do your hair weight, but you should never feel like you can't participate in life because you don't feel good or, proud of the way you look, that you should always feel good in your body.
Have you ever felt completely invisible or disregarded in a situation where you felt you really had something valuable to contribute?
Yeah, lots of times, especially as a woman in academia, I think. And sometimes you say something, and I don't know if I can think of a particular example, but just maybe less now, as I'm not a junior faculty member. I'm a mid-career faculty member. It's one of those things where you say something and no one hears you, and then a guy, a senior male, says something very similar, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a great point. What a great point. So
but when I get in a group where I have to share things about myself and I haven't prepared for it, I get really, really nervous. And if I was in a room and someone said, does anyone know about this? And I was like, I know that I know, I would have trouble putting my hand up and speaking.
Almost the easy answer to this is, as a woman in tech, I've certainly been in rooms where I was, talked over or not seen. And that's true. That's just a reality. That's true. But it hasn't, but I'm not gonna point to that and say that that's the great sort of trauma of my tech experience, because it hasn't been.
Yeah, wow, that sparks my entire marriage. Where just trying to be heard and understood. I mean, I don't know how many times I'd be screaming, "You just don't understand it, you just don't understand it." And I mean, painful as fuck, right? When you're trying to do that, trying to get someone to see you.
I've had a lot of those experiences since immigrating to Canada at different points in time. But the one that stands out for me always is I was interviewing for a teaching role. The interview started and the chair of the panel told me, "So Shobna, welcome, nice to meet you. As a minority oppressed woman, tell me about your experiences in Canada."
All my life, I was the makeup artist in the background. My husband at that time was the top model in Winnipeg. I wouldn't have wanted to be on the runway. I never wanted to be in front. I had a lot of jobs where I was on the phone. That was my favorite. I hated even working in the bank, hated working at the airport, at the ticket office. I did not like people looking at me while I was working. Like I just did not want to be in front of people.
I have women that I know that are older, that are friends of mine, that are in their 70s and 80s, and it's interesting listening to them. They say, "I still feel the same age too," but they feel invisible. They're like, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Nobody hears you. Nobody notices me in the supermarket. They, sort of bump me like I'm invisible. And that is curious to me, and also a bit sad that we don't value our elders like we used to in different cultures and societies and times.
I now can say that I felt like I wasn't seen for most of my life, in some ways, like just in terms of being so masked that I didn't even know who I was myself, so I couldn't even see myself, never mind be seen by anybody else.
Maybe just a feeling of not being seen for who I was that I think is just very typical of when you're younger, and people aren't seeing themselves for who they are. So how could they see you for who you are?
For a moment, I felt like a nothing because I've never defined myself that way as a minority oppressed woman. In that moment, like I literally was speechless. I just stared, I just sat there, not knowing how to even respond. And then I just, remember just laughing, and I said, "Well, I've never quite defined myself that way, but I can talk about my experiences as an immigrant woman in Canada," and I continued.
Like, I know that the data and the science says that, like, as women especially, or a woman of color, like anytime that you're a minority in the situation, like, you are going to be more likely to be talked over. Like, it's like everything says that this is true, and my experience is that it is true, but also, like, to the extent that it has slowed me down, like, it hasn't.
Maybe I have done this to someone else as well, but when it happened to me, I understand those feelings. It has happened many times, and I'm glad it happened. That was one part of actually which made me stronger.
But again, lessons through wisdom, and that's, I can't force him, make him see me if he doesn't want, like, he's caught in his own stuff. So just that recognition of, it's not my circus, it's not my monkeys, it's not what I am here to do. I'm not here to make you see me. I'm not here to change you, fix you, figure it. Like, if you want to be here, you want to be here. I'm finding, and this is something I've just come into.
I don't know, I think that's lessening over and over time, but I remember even 10 years ago where I knew that I had something valuable to contribute, but I thought, like, oh no, everybody else in the room probably knows more than me, or I don't have the right to speak. And it feels terrible to be in that position.
And there have been those moments. Another one that comes to my mind is a couple of years ago, I was at this very big event where somebody quite important was being recognized. And a very senior leader in the community walked up to me and introduced him to me, and we follow each other on social media, on LinkedIn. And so we were just chatting, and then as he was leaving, he said, "Well, pleasure meeting you, Shobna, and by the way, your English is very good. And there was a couple of people who just kind of frowned at him, and one person just shook their head like that. And I just laughed and I said, so is yours. and then we all just laughed together. But it was this unnecessary comment, that was absolutely not needed. But when it's said the way it's said, it makes the other person actually doesn't feel good.
How do you feel about the term Karen? I'm curious about if it's a thing or whether it might be another way to dismiss a woman's voice or concerns that could potentially be legitimate.
I think with everything, like the term Karen, okay, I think with everything, it starts for something and then meaning something, and then people take it way too far as well. So I think that there is, first of all, I don't love the word, the name, but I get the energy of the insult, which is often used for women, like it's used for women, and it's used for someone that is sticking their nose where it doesn't belong and centering themselves and like trying to demand things and like maybe not seeing other people.
I think that anytime that we label broad groups of people, we set ourselves up for a challenging reality because we are as unique as we are. Like, we're all individually unique, and it's hard anytime we start to label groups of people, whether it's in positive ways or negative ways.
I think a lot of the stuff comes from us thinking we have to compete with each other instead of accepting that we're all the same.
Where do you think we learned that?
Men, unfortunately. I do think the whole patriarch, the whole setup, religion, all of that is just that sense of this is who you're supposed to be. This is what a good girl acts like. This is what a good woman looks like.
Probably just unconscious societal messaging over a lifetime.
Are there areas where you feel very confident in your life?
Confident. Ooh. Confidence and I have had a strange relationship. In one way, I've always been a bit spicy, like I'll just do what I want. I have that kind of confidence to go and decide to do a career change, to decide, oh, I'm just going to try this, I'm going to do that. Like that kind of stuff is there. But I didn't have real confidence in some ways. So I could get myself places, and then once I got there, I didn't know what to do.
Like, I've been very, very fortunate to have a significant amount of professional success. To the point that now even my sort of like demons who like to tell me that I'm not enough and like could always work harder and so on and so forth, like even they can't say anything at this point. It's like no, like it's like legit. Like you've hit a bunch of these milestones, so on and so forth.
I remember whenever I go out with my husband to his work parties, I was used to hide in one corner. If I go to the gym, I will always go in one corner to hide myself. I am also gonna tell one story. I remember Cal took me to one event. So the host, he came to me, he shook my hand. He asked me, who are you? And I introduced myself. I'm like, I'm Cal's wife. And he looked at me in my eyes. He's like, I'm asking, who are you? I still remember him. That time I thought, oh, I need my own identity.
I feel confident as a writer in some ways, as a writer, confidence as a writer can feel. Like a writer, you're always in and out of confidence. You think, oh, this is good, this is bad. Oh, there's this struggle with your own writing. One day you read something, think it's great. Next day you read it and think, oh my God, that's garbage. And then you come back, so there's this thing going on.
I feel physically confident. I'm really trying to maintain my body in a way that allows me to do the activities of daily living, hopefully till I make it to 100 or more. So I feel, confident that my body can do things. Like I have mobility to quickly turn and grab something if it falls, or reach up high on a shelf, or carry my kid home if she skins her knee even though she's 60 pounds. Yeah, I think those are the areas where I'm most confident.
And then I had to travel around to all the rodeos in BC and do the grand entry with the flag. And I was not really a horse girl. Like, I learned it, and I was there with all these other rodeo people that barrel raced, and I was a complete fraud, I thought. But it gave me a lot of confidence. And anyway, I ended up winning that and going on to Miss Rodeo Canada. And those were big, pivotal changes, coming from a very small town and then going out sort of into the world and having to public speak everywhere and things like that.
Now I want to be in the center. Doesn't matter who talks to me or not, but I'm present. So everyone notices me, even in the gym. If I see someone new like me, I always make sure that I give them a smile. I make sure that they feel belong here. Yeah, because I did not experience that. No one came out of the way to say hello.
I'm most confident now than I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm more sure of myself than I've ever been in my entire life. And it's kind of sad that it's taken so long, because I don't know how much longer I have to live. I kind of wish I had more time.
What's the process from getting to feeling unsure and not so confident about ourselves to having that belief and trust in who we are?
Yeah, I think it goes back to reflection. For me, because I'm, a researcher and a scientist, I like gathering data, and journaling is a big thing for me. And I do celebrate myself in my journal, and I do it more and more. And so to go back and read in my own writing about things I've achieved and things I've overcome, like, that has definitely built my confidence.
It took way more than it ever should have for me to now feel confident enough to say, actually, no, like, I do know what I'm doing, and I actually have something to offer. But I also know that with wisdom comes the understanding that it's like just because it worked for me or in this situation certainly doesn't mean that it's going to work for you or in these other situations. So I think that's part of it too.
I think recognizing that that's the way life works is important, instead of, why can't I deal with this? Women, like right now, the biggest thing is, I'm so foggy. Well, you're taking on 50 million things and you don't recognize how much you're taking on. So you're overwhelmed, you're overworked, you're like, how long have you been in cortisol, right? Where that spike is. Of course your body's going to react this way. You're in flight or fight all the time. You can't solve these problems in that. And we judge ourselves for being there instead of going, okay, Grace, chill out, come back at it later.
But also I use ceremony. So before I would do a reading, I would try to have a day of just listening to some chanting music. I haven't talked about my interest in Eastern. I had a guru.
You can't see the beauty when you're lost in the confusion, right? So calming things down a bit helps, right? Because it's very easy to see everything wrong with the world, and there's a lot of bad stuff, but there's also a lot of good stuff.
So maybe midlife isn't the beginning of the end of our story. Maybe it's just the start of a brand new chapter that could be wildly exciting. What if we took control of the narratives around the changes in our bodies, our minds, and our lives, and used them to reassess and get anchored in what is heartfelt and authentic for us? The women we've heard from today remind us that confidence isn't about perfection, and it certainly isn't something that was handed to them. It's something they've built by letting go of outdated and unrealistic expectations, owning their stories, and most importantly, knowing that their value doesn't come from how the world sees them, but from how they see themselves. So wherever you are on your journey, I hope this conversation inspires you to celebrate your strengths, listen to your instincts, and remember that it's what you think and feel that matters. As Michelle Obama said, it's not about being perfect. It's not about where you get yourself in the end. There's power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice. Join us next time as we talk to women about their longest and most intimate relationship, the one they've created with their own body. Until then, I'm Dr. Natasha Ghosh, reminding you that life can be messy. So at the risk of sounding like the sweet text on a throw pillow, show yourself some love, trust the process, and lean into all the feels, because this is how we live.
I'm from warm tea mugs on early mornings made with long and lachi. I'm from the cozy, cluttered big open veda, comforting smelling of fresh Indian spices. I'm from Roshan and Afsana, and all the story they told in quiet moments to express themselves. I'm from the voices that love deeply and laugh loudly, and the quiet strength that carries through tough times. I'm from Sunday Gurdwara gatherings and laughter echoing through generations. I'm from Punjab and the golden fields of wheat, from buttery prathas, sweet kheer with mangoes ripe with my grandma's orchard. I'm from the faded black and white photos, resting in a wooden box. Each one a piece of history, a moment covered with dust and lost in piles of dirt.